Okay. Good morning, Rae.
Good morning, Jeremy.
Good morning. And good day to you.
Yes.
People.
Well, it's morning for us.
It is morning for us right now.
I'm waiting for my mocha.
I'll allow you to watch it at any time.
Anytime.
Anytime you want. You can watch and listen.
Maybe late at night. It might be funnier.
Well, maybe this one especially.
When you're, yes.
We have a spooky edition of Getting Together. But thank you. Welcome to the Getting Together podcast. I'm Jeremy Brinkerhoff, and this is my co-host,
Rae Challinor.
Thank you.
Is that because you say my last name wrong?
All the time. But this is what we do. It's actually part of the show now.
It's our thing.
We just mispronounce names.
Jay Leno was known for things and,
good things.
Our thing is getting your last name all screwed up.
Yes.
That's our thing.
That's all right.
Everybody's
and first names, that's okay. That's okay too.
First names too.
Anyway, so before we started recording, you were telling me that you've actually, so we have an author on today.
We do.
So let's start there.
Because I'm a wannabe author. Yes.
Now why? Why are you a wannabe author?
Because I think everybody's got I love stories.
Okay.
I think everybody has a story.
Everyone does have a story.
Even if it's and then there's those people with just incredible imaginations who we're going to meet one of those people today.
Awesome.
You think she's just a run-of-the-mill, cutie patootie little mom, and then there's this side where you're like, what? And I love that. And I have a little bit of that in me. You think like middle-aged, flabby arm mom, but I've got deep things, Jeremy.
So, and what would you author if you were to author?
Oh, I already have it written down. And
what does that mean?
I don't want to give her name away yet, and my friend who's going to be with us today, we've actually talked about this, and she's so encouraged. She's like, do it. And I just don't know where to start. So I have several books.
Okay.
I have a children's book that I would love to write about.
Do you have a title?
The Adventures of Lenny and So-So.
Okay. So
my kids, when they were little, but for kind of like kids whose reading level is a little lower, maybe some kids with delays, might go the foster adoptive direction, that kind of book.
Okay. And then another one?
And then the other one is like my stories from living in the hood. But
also a children's book?
Also very light, fun. But I would like to do fiction.
Okay.
Kind of loosely based on our life.
Yeah.
And, and my husband would have to die because somebody's got to die.
Okay.
And I think it would
so
have
it's
to
a Disney
be him.
movie.
Right? Exactly. It's British. It's a fairy tale. No. So, yeah, I really like to tell kind of that side of things. I just think it would be, in my opinion, it would be riveting. This suburban family moves down to just be a neighbor and gets entangled with, the
gangsta
life, the gangs, the pimps, because I've had pimps at my dinner table. I mean, there's just good stories there.
Yeah. So, and then you become a rap star.
Possibly.
Yes. Okay.
I'm not against it.
Okay. All right. That's fair enough. Well, so this is interesting because I think
personalities
it's that creative thing.
Right.
Yes. So.
I don't consider myself creative.
Why?
I would never call myself creative.
Why not? You're wearing a button bracelet.
Well, because my daughter made it for me. Because moms are like buttons; they hold things together.
Yes.
But I never would call myself creative ever.
Again, why not?
What am I creative at? I don't create anything.
You created this?
But
see, like you have ideas and you have things that are like out there and you're like, oh man, I want this and I want that.
And you see
like
that as creative?
I do, because it's not, to me, that's not that linear thought of like, I'm logical, I will do this in this order. Yes.
Yeah.
And so it's like you want things to come into being. You have this thing of like, man, I see that, and I want to see that come to reality. Like to me, that's the creative process.
Okay. See, I would totally call you creative. Absolutely, no question.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
But so yeah.
Okay, so what would you write?
Well, so when we were overseas, I really wanted to capture a lot of the stories and things that were happening.
Yes.
And so I started a blog.
Of course you did.
And I wrote things, and I like that creative process.
Yeah.
I like that thing of like trying to paint the picture with words and have people experience things alongside you.
See, you need to write, because I don't have any of that.
Oh, I think you do. But then you're very conversational and engaging. So
I could do it on a podcast.
But then, and oddly enough, I don't know why this is tied in, but there has to be something with this whole deal. I went to see Top Gun Maverick last night.
You did. We have yet to see it. Don't tell me the ending. Please,
it
does
doesn't
Tom Cruise
matter.
go down in a blaze of flames? No. What?
You don't like Tom Cruise?
Oh, please. Nobody does.
Oh, I do.
No, you don't.
Oh, yeah, I do.
No, deep down you don't. Anyway.
I do. So, a side note there. So when we go to the theater last night, and like one of the opening, it wasn't. Okay. I mean, it was comfortable.
Yeah.
One of the opening scenes, Tom Cruise, it opens on him, and he's like next to this really cool P-51 Mustang,
of course it opens on him. Yes.
Right. And so I kind of give like a. Yeah, and Marissa goes, was that for the plane or for Tom Cruise? I'm like, it's kind of both.
50-50
It's
right
really
now.
both. But so anyway, we're at this movie, and the whole thing is, Top Gun, pilots, they're the best of the best, and all this kind of stuff. And like, there's that thing in me of like, man, I wish I was excellent at something.
Yeah.
But a lot of times I kind of give like, well, I tried it. Okay, I guess I wasn't. And so then the writing thing comes back up.
Yes.
I'm like, I expect to be good at certain things. Just be like, oh, it'll just take off. But there's a lot of hard work. There's a lot of dedication.
We're going to hear about
that goes into those kinds of things. And I'm like, you know what? I've really never stuck with something like that. Like, so what would it be to be exceptional at something where I've really dedicated myself to the study of something and then receiving feedback? I'm horrible about like taking criticism, which you got to have some tough skin.
You've got an editor, so a publisher.
Yeah. So anyway,
but I think you could. You are a wordsmith. Okay, so I think
in small pieces.
Well, I don't know why those small pieces couldn't all come together.
There you go.
And be a big piece.
A big piece.
Chapters are small pieces.
Thank you. Yes, and words are smaller pieces of smaller sentences.
Way too deep.
And a fragment. I mean, that's like, it's a fragment.
We have now lost the audience. We lost
There we go. That's okay. They'll come back because it's us.
It's us. And they love getting together with us and our guests. And I'm super excited about this one. And her name is, I'm not going to get this one wrong. Please don't let me. Sherry Rossman. I'm looking at her now. Hey, I got the thumbs up.
All right. And we're sure it's not like Sherry Rossman.
Better not be, because today she's Sherry Rossman, and that's it.
Okay,
that's all she's getting.
That's good. We've actually got one right.
Yes.
First try, even.
I'm so sorry to all our other guests.
First try.
I'm not really. It's kind of our thing now.
That's okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay.
Yeah. So here she is. It's our interview with
Sherry Rossman.
Famous author, Sherry Rossman. So, Sherry, I'm so excited that you're here.
Oh, thank you for having me.
And for those of you that watched the Joan, was it Bigley? Was that her last name?
Yes.
If you watched that interview, if you didn't, you need to go back and see it because it's hilarious. She's amazing.
She's so cute.
But Sherry set that up for us because not only are you an author, I would say your day job, but it's actually your night job, isn't it?
It's my night job.
Yeah, you work nights.
Part-time, yes.
At Las Fuentes.
Las Fuentes, yes, a retirement home. Yes.
And so you hooked us up with Joan, which was so kind of you.
Yes,
because
she's my buddy.
Yeah, she's phenomenal.
Yes.
All right, so fill us in. Are you a Prescottonian native?
No, I grew up in Rimrock, which is about an hour from here.
Okay.
And I came up here to Yavapai College.
Mm-hmm.
And I met my husband at the college, my now husband. And
what were you doing at the college? What did you?
I was studying graphic design. Yes, the writing came later. But we loved, both of us. Neither of us studied what we ended up doing.
How I hear this.
Yes. However, we loved the Prescott area so much. I mean, trees, convenience. If you're an outdoor person, it's fabulous. And so we decided that no matter what we did, we were staying here.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Where's your honey from?
He's from Mesa.
He's from Mesa.
Yes.
And he came up to go to Yavapai.
He did. Yes, his grandparents lived here in town.
Okay.
Yes. We're both big on the grandparent generation, as you know.
Yeah.
And yes. And for me, this was big city. For him, this was small town. So, yeah.
You both loved it.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
And you decided this was going to be home.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. And then take us through. You decided not to do graphic design.
My first love was fine art. I mean, since I had my first memories, I loved fine art. I wanted to paint and draw. And so that actually was what I was planning on pursuing.
Okay.
And I always loved writing. I wrote poetry. I would win some childhood poetry contests, but I always considered it unattainable for people who are not in the gifted program or, who's... I thought it was for people whose GPAs were as high as the sun.
Right.
And whose GPAs weren't crashed down to the earth with their math scores like myself.
I kind of feel that way too. About authors?
Yeah?
Yeah, I kind of like, deep thinkers, philosophers.
Yeah,
really.
and I don't know why I got that idea into my head. I guess I read voraciously, and I just thought it was, and we studied books in school, and I just got this idea that it was for special people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But by the time I got to my senior year in high school, I discovered that art college was outrageously expensive. It was out of the price range. It was out of the question. And I wasn't going to take out any student loans. That was my plan.
Ooh,
and so I thought, well, graphic design is art with technology. And so I pursued that. But by the time I was finishing up my AA, that's as far as I went. I knew it wasn't for me. It was just too technical.
It was too what?
Technical.
Oh, okay.
I
too
needed
technical.
to be messy, paint with a brush and mess. And that was more my personality.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
And so, but I had met my soon-to-be husband, and we got married, and we stayed in Prescott because we loved it, and neither of us really knew what we were doing, so we'd got day jobs at this retirement home.
Oh, really?
And yes, and so, and like I said, at night, I'm somewhat of an introvert, so I like working at night, and then I get to talk to the residents there, and they tell me all their stories, which are really awesome.
Oh,
and
see, she loves stories too.
love stories. So, but I kind of felt like I was stuck, even though I liked working there. I wasn't following any passion, and
Right.
I felt stuck and discouraged for quite some time. And there was this tiny little precious woman there who I had watched through a number of years fall into dementia. And she was very special to me. She was one of my favorites. And there was one night when I was particularly discouraged and feeling like a failure. And I was working over on her side of the building where she was getting some more assistance, and she couldn't formulate a sentence. She couldn't ask for a cup of water. She couldn't get dressed by herself. She couldn't figure out where her arms and her legs went. However, she did not lose Jesus. She could say a Bible verse fluently.
Wow.
She couldn't say anything else. She couldn't ask for the simplest need. But for some reason, I've never seen this before, ever, but she could recite Bible verses. And so she had a really great support group who took her to Bible study every Wednesday night. And on this night, I was feeling really sorry for myself. She came in the door, and she was holding this bright yellow leaf. And she came to my desk. She
Why do you want to make me cry?
She set this leaf down, and she looked at me, and she said, without hesitation, she said, "For I know the plans I have for you, says the Lord. Plans to prosper you, not to harm you. Plans to give you hope in the future." And the moment she said that, it was like whoosh, this whisper in the background that was writing that I thought was a hobby. It just became, I knew it was a calling.
Oh, wow.
It was just that one moment.
Wow.
And like I said, when she had put the leaf down, and when she said that, I got the scene, the setting of my first story in my mind. I could see it like a painting.
Oh my word, I've got goosebumps.
And that became my first published story. But I had to learn how to write, and I joined a writers group because it's not like they teach you in the school. You have to learn how to write for the market. And so it was some years of me learning how to write awkwardly and some really bad things at first. But like I said, the inspiration I had that moment that I spoke to her became my first published work. And then it was a children's story. And then I slowly moved into young adult and adult stories. So.
Wow.
Yes.
That's really cool.
So cool.
I need to hang around more old folks' homes.
I know, right? Yes, inspiring.
Yes, that's awesome.
Oh man, that's so great.
That's really cool.
Well, Sherry, so but you guys then have been at Las Fuentes for a long time.
22 years, and I'm just right. I started there full time, and John actually found his niche. He moved up into management, and he loves it, and I'm just only there a few days a week now.
That is so great.
So, and I love it. I love the people we've had. Just I feel like I'm the story collector.
Yes,
we've had war veterans. We've had a MASH nurse. We've had a woman who worked for the French Underground. We've had artists and authors and professional athletes and teachers, and everything.
Yes.
To think of, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, and I love that you were there to hear their stories, because you know my 80 something. I don't know if she'd appreciate me telling her age, but yeah, my mom, she'd be fine. She's 83. Lives with us, and I just think one day she said to someone, I overheard a conversation. She was being asked some questions by when we were thinking of fostering again. And so she had to be interviewed. And the woman was asking her, and my mom kind of took a moment and she said, you know what? I'll have to think about that, because nobody really asks me questions anymore. And she's like, and nobody, you know, the people that she knows, like us, we know her stories. So you're almost like, yeah, Mom, we've heard that, you know. And so it brings me joy that the people in Las Fuentes get to tell someone, yes, these incredible life-giving, you know, stories that they all kind of just pool right there. There's your reality TV show.
Right. Oh yeah.
Right?
It would be a great one. I mean,
Wouldn't
it's
it?
actually, I've learned, I pretty much grew up there because I was in my early 20s when I started working there.
Yes.
And I just, you see what resilience does, you see what bitterness does, you see what faith does, you see
Whoa,
and
Sherry.
I mean, I learned how to write character there by writing, and then I learned, you know, personal lessons, and it's just been the most phenomenal experience working with that, you know. And then we had the World War II generation, and then we're having the other ones move up.
Yes.
And it's fascinating.
Wow.
Yeah.
So then in that process of kind of learning how to write and what that was all about, and in this place where stories are just kind of like surrounding you, what were some of those formative things that really kind of shaped who you became as an author, or who you are right now as an author?
Yeah, good question.
Many things. I think we're all born with our gifts.
Yeah.
And they just have to be worked out of us,
Yes,
you know.
I agree
And
with that.
I always felt like I was a storyteller, but just experiencing life. I mean, the most important thing when you're a creator of any kind is to just live and make decisions and see the results of those decisions. And working at the retirement place, I saw the happiest generation that I've ever seen was the World War II generation, and they went through the most.
Yes, that's
They
crazy.
went through, they saw polio, they saw war, they saw the Depression, and they
had no Target? How are you happy without Target?
and it was like, you know, we have approximately 300 people there, and they all lived the hero's journey.
Wow.
And just watching that and observing that and listening to their stories taught me how to write character, how to live, how to, you know, how to pursue passion, how to be resilient, and that there's just no good reason to ever become bitter.
No.
Wow.
I mean, you know,
It just eats you up.
It
Doesn't do
does.
anything for anybody else.
Yeah.
It just kills you.
And so, and then I had influences of the authors, you know, the books I read.
Yeah.
Frank Peretti was huge.
Oh my
wow.
gosh.
Yeah,
Can
okay.
we just talk about that for a minute?
Please.
Did you read?
Oh, so in my family, growing up,
Yeah.
every night after dinner, we'd read a chapter of something.
I love that.
And so there was a season where we had done like When Calls the Heart, that whole Jeanette Oak, then like all these different
Well, because you have a
books.
sister too, so you have to balance.
And you know, C.S. Lewis, Chronicles of Narnia, all that stuff, right? So then we did all the Frank Peretti novels as well, and like talk about
How old were you?
So fortunately by that time I'm probably 12, 13,
Okay.
so
Ooh.
a little more ready for it.
Yeah,
But it
still.
dovetailed with this thing that we were doing at church at the time, which was it was called like I don't know what the name of the movie was.
He's
It was
doing his face.
You've Been Left Behind. It was this,
Oh,
the
right.
Left Behind.
but it wasn't the Left Behind books.
Oh,
It was just
it like
this
Thief in the
movie.
Night?
Maybe
stuff?
It was awful. It was so scary.
Oh, yes,
and
yes.
this whole refrain, "You've been left
And
behind."
not doctrinally sound, might I add.
And then they had this whole thing where like the children were brought in and they had balloons, and then there was a
Oh,
guillotine, and the
that was
guillotine
it.
blade drops and the balloon goes up to the ceiling.
Oh my.
Totally
And
remember.
I was like,
no.
oh my gosh. And like every 5 minutes, you're like,
Horrible.
I just want to be saved. I just want to be saved. And you're like over and over. I'm totally honest. I
Horrible.
don't know. I just don't want that, you know?
No,
And so, but
that's
that's
not
that's
Jesus.
part of my Frank Peretti thing. thing.
Oh, all
but
together?
Yes.
Jeremy, every night you were praying for salvation. Every night you had to be.
At least every night.
Yeah, I got to meet him last summer.
Really?
And
I
he
remember
is
your picture.
at
Didn't you get
a writers
picture?
conference. He came and he was our keynote speaker, and he is a very down to earth, humble man.
Nice.
And you would not think by hearing him speak that he would write such things.
Okay, for those of our listeners and viewers though that aren't familiar, what would you call his book? Was what?
Well, I think it's considered Christian fantasy, but
Christian
he definitely has
fantasy.
paranormal elements. He has some probably light horror elements.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely.
Supernatural.
If you haven't read it, I mean, it was in the 90s.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yep.
And he still writes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I read it, and I was at like the really creepy part, and two of my really good girlfriends, we were in high school, and we were at a friend's beach house. So you're at the beach, and it's on an Indian reservation, and totally dark, no lights out there, and I'm sitting on the deck, and the waves are crashing, and the moon is out, and I'm scared to death. Scared to death.
Yes.
The best. I love being scared like that.
You do?
Oh yeah.
Oh,
When it's just a book. It's just I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
love
is it?
But
That's the whole
is
thing,
it?
man.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that idea of kind of like peeling back the veil and seeing what's behind what we naturally see and what we do, but then having that thing of like, hey, there are spiritual forces at work here.
Yes.
There's something playing out that's a lot more grand than our humdrum everyday thing that we try to dismiss.
Absolutely.
And so I think that for me was also personally, I was going through actually being discipled for the first time. So I was in a small group, I was in a men's group. So there was a lot of that personal journey for me just in that time of like, oh yeah, we're not just playing a game here. Like there's stuff at stake. And so I don't know. So his particular novels actually, I would say were semi-formative in that whole thing of like, we don't just play church. Like, I don't know. Anyway.
Yeah.
For me as well, it had a huge impact on me personally. And I was a teenager in high school when I read This Present Darkness, and that's his breakthrough book, the one that made him famous. And
so good.
And then the sequel, Piercing the Darkness. And for me, it satisfied questions I had that not many people would talk about.
Right.
Angels and demons and the spirit world. And so.
What I would be interested to know what he was like as a child. Like, even with you, like, you were raised, you said Rimrock.
Yes.
Super small.
Yes.
And didn't your parents built their house, right?
They built their house with their own hands. They took 10 years. We lived in a trailer in this corner while they built our very beautiful
And I just
home.
think there's something about, you don't have the other distractions.
Right.
Okay.
You're away. Your imagination comes to life.
It does.
Don't you think?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, I was kind of raised as an only child. My sister is 8 years older, so she was out of the house. Parents were a little older, and so I played a lot by myself. And my imagination huge.
It makes a difference.
Yeah.
Yes.
It does.
Yes. Yeah.
Wow. So you would say
And
Freddie
you have
was,
sisters and brothers?
Oh,
Sorry.
that's a good question.
I have 2 older brothers. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Were they
Kind to you?
At times,
Have you written them as a villain in one of your books?
Right.
Not yet. Although one of my brothers, he's an architect, and he my first novel that I got published with a publisher in Tempe.
Was
It's now is called Faith Seekers, and it's now out of print. But one of my characters was an architect, and so he actually helped me with some of the research.
That's
that's cool.
He's not a villain yet.
Yeah. That's awesome.
There are some memories that have surfaced that may come alive.
See, I would love that.
That's good.
Immortalized forever in the written word.
Yes. This is maybe why you shouldn't write.
Probably not.
Wait a second. That's me. She's talking about me.
He had a twisty mustache.
That's right. Oh, man.
Okay.
So, and what are you up to right now? You brought a couple of books
Yes,
with
can we
you.
see them?
What are these books?
These are
and-
my newest ones. So I started out writing faith-based fiction, and then I moved into the general market because I wanted to explore darker themes. And that's not because I'm scary.
Twisted.
It's because our world is just, we face dark things and we face trauma you've spoken about and tragedy, and I just felt like I wanted to speak to that audience.
Okay.
And this is Welcome to Velvet, Arizona. This is my newest novel,
That
and
gives me goosebumps.
it is a Thanksgiving mild horror story.
Okay.
It's really about the power of words.
The power of words.
Yes, but it's based on a small town in Arizona, and I made up the town.
Okay.
But it's, in my head, I picture Stoneman Lake area. I don't know if you're familiar. It's kind of like halfway between
I'm never going there.
Brimrock and Sedona and Flagstaff. It's along that route where the high desert turns into forest. And so it's this curse that comes into this town every Thanksgiving, and it comes early this year. And a group of, interesting characters have to solve it.
Okay. Are they still teens? Like, would you say this is still geared towards...
This is young adult, although it's told through multiple viewpoints, and a few of my characters are adult, like 30-somethings. And so this would appeal to anywhere from, I would say, mid to late teens on up.
Okay.
And just as an FYI, most adults read young adult. I mean, like
Twilight.
I would say 60% of my readers are 30 and up.
Yeah.
They just don't always like to say that.
Right. We hide it in our purse. Yes. Exactly.
And then my most recent short story came out in an anthology called Hidden Villains, edited by Robin Huss, and it's by Inked Publishing. And this is a collection of short stories, and they're all about villains. And there are fantasy stories, there are really sweet and fluffy stories, and science fiction stories, and there are really creepy horror stories. So,
Right there.
How do you get sweet fluffy in a book about villains?
Well, it's they wanted all the stories to be in the speculative fiction genre.
I have no idea what you're saying right now.
Speculative fiction is anything in the what if realm, the fantasy realm. So it's fantasy, science fiction, dystopian, horror, etc. Anything that involved is otherworldly.
Okay.
So, yes.
Speculative
fiction, which is what Frank Peretti writes.
Okay.
Yes.
What if we could see behind...
What if we could see behind the veil?
Okay.
I like that.
Speculative.
Yes.
Cool.
Okay. My life is like that. Hey, speculative. What if?
Yes.
No idea.
So, as I was reading... I was reading a little bio of you and some of these books, one of them, or the genre, is described as light horror.
Yes. Which we giggled at.
So because we do. Where's the line between light and hardcore horror?
Okay, so basically I called my books paranormal, but then as people were reading them and commenting on them and reviewing them, they called them light horror, and I didn't know that.
Okay.
So basically it's creepy and it's a little dark, but it's light because it's not gory at all.
It's not like Scream, slasher.
There's no violence. There's no, or very mild. There's no gore, but there are elements that are frightening.
Paranormal.
Suspenseful. Yeah. It's suspenseful. Yes.
Okay.
Now, but see, if I heard horror, I'd probably stay away from that. So I'm glad that you explained that.
Yes.
Because I don't want to go to bed with Freddy
so
Krueger.
I would say it's PG-13. Yeah.
Okay.
So,
okay.
Because I was trying to think through that, like if you're going to bed and you're like, hey honey, I want to watch this movie, and I don't really want to have a horror movie before. No, it's light horror.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
Fine.
Turn it on. Let's bring that on.
That. Sure. Yeah.
The Texas Chainsaw leg cramp.
Yeah.
No, it's not quite the massacre. I mean, it did hurt really bad. It was really painful.
It was just a foot.
Yeah, I know.
It's a Texas Chainsaw meets Anne of Green Gables.
There you go.
I'm in on
okay.
that.
Yes.
I'm definitely in on that. Like, Anne of Green Gables. Why do I have to sit here and watch this? Your sister picked it.
No, if there was some light horror in it, you would love it. There you go.
Oh my goodness. Okay, light horror. There we go.
Oh man.
That helps.
Okay. How did you get there though, Sherry? Like you said, you started off with a children's book.
Yes.
And then now we're at light horror.
Paranormal.
So when I was writing children's, I was still in that illustrative art mind. I wanted to illustrate books as well.
Okay.
And with my first published book, I found out that they don't really want you to illustrate your own book for the most part. The publishing house had their own illustrators, and I love children's books. I think they're great. I think there's lots of wisdom in children's books.
Yes, I agree.
But I just wanted to get a little deeper with my subject matter. And I love young adult fiction because I love that age group because they still believe in extraordinary things and are so full of imagination, and yet they're starting to become adults. And so there are so many things you can explore.
Yeah.
All
right. Walk us through, though, really quickly. The process. This is what stops me. I can talk into my recorder, right? Yes. and I'll talk and kind of like a book, like how I would like it to read. And then I just go, oh, that's just dumb. That's just stupid. And I'm not good at typing because I talked, shocker, all the way through my typing class in high school.
I can't imagine.
All good.
Oh, yes, I can. I can see
that. Horrible grade. And my best friend was in the same class, so we just talked. So I'm not good at typing. So how do you just sit down and write a book? How does that happen?
That actually depends on your personality completely.
There's storyboards I've heard of.
No, some authors, some writers do go that route. In school when they had you to come up with the idea bubbles,
Yes.
and you had to write your ideas in these bubbles, and then you had to do an outline and the whole story arc. I don't do that.
Okay.
Because I don't think that way. I'm not an organized thinker. I'm intuitive. So how you write, and you can dictate your story too, and you can write it, or you can have someone help you write it.
Okay.
And so there's no right way. You just do it. You ignore what you learned in school. I'm sorry, teachers. I love you. I had some great teachers. My English teachers were my favorite.
Mine too.
Anyway,
Mine too.
And my art teachers. Anyway, but you have to do what you do. You have to create according to how you were wired, because that's how you think, and that's how you were made to create. Yes. And so with me, I get my very first novel. I was doing laundry, and I got this really vivid image in my mind, and it was the very last scene of the book. And then so because I don't have to be super organized, I'm like, oh, let's just write up to that point. And then my second series of books is 3 books, a dystopian series. I got the idea in a dream. It was just this really few-minute scene in a dream, and that's actually very common. I mean, you hear about the author of Twilight. Oh, she got the idea for Twilight in a dream. That's very common. Authors have a lot of dreamy dreams.
Do you wake up and write stuff down? Do you wake up right then?
Sometimes.
Okay.
I just write. I keep notebooks everywhere. My purse, the car, by my bed. For Welcome to Velvet, I got a character in my head, and he had actually been in my head for years. And he's actually my favorite character in the book. His name is Felix, and I got just this picture of this old man in his overalls, and he's dancing, and he's joyful, and he's childlike, and then the characters came to me one by one, and I had no idea what the story was, and it just came in bits and pieces and puzzles. And then when I had just enough of an inkling of the story, I started to write it. And then there can be as much editing as needed. So
that's gonna be so hard to watch things that you've put out there,
and they go
taken away.
Not that.
And I've worked with different editors. They all have different styles, and my earliest mentor, she gave me what we call thick-skinned critiques of my first novels, and wow, it felt very violent to my soul.
Now that's why we're in light horror.
Exactly. Is she in one of your books?
But she got me to publish level.
Okay.
Because you got to take the criticism, and you got.
That's tough.
It was great.
That's tough.
It was the best thing. Yeah.
And do you have a particular place that you like to write that is more kind of inspiring to that creative process, or does it not matter as much?
I need a quiet place.
Sure.
You might remember I would close my blinds and hold myself off to the neighborhood.
Yeah.
It needs to be quiet. It needs to be, except if I'm stuck on a plot point, I will go outside. Nature, creation, outside trees. It does something to the mind.
Yeah.
But otherwise,
she's a runner.
Okay.
I run, I hike. Yes, and it serves to clear the mind. I think our minds are a little too full right now with social media and technology, and I have to get to a point where I can just clear it out.
Yes.
So, outside solitude.
Yeah.
That's so great. Okay, what's next? Are you working on something next?
I am, yes. It is another paranormal, not a light horror.
Okay.
Yet.
Yeah.
About 3/4 the way through.
Ooh.
I'm a pantser. So I just kind of write as I go along. That means I just write by the seat of my pants.
Okay.
Okay.
And so I have a vague notion, and I just write, and it works out better that way.
Okay.
For me. And so it has to deal with the stars and young adults and a giant mansion.
And a giant what?
Mansion.
Okay.
I like it.
And an attic with a magical trunk.
There's always an attic.
Yes.
I'm telling you. And I was looking at your book title. I'm like, anything that's like welcome to, it's going to be creepy. It's just gonna be
Welcome to.
creepy. Welcome to blah blah blah. Yep, gonna be creepy.
All right.
Don't go there.
No, don't go welcome.
That.
It's not welcome.
I might just read that, Sherry. I might.
All right.
Yes.
Fair enough.
Yes.
Very cool.
Not at night.
Yeah. When it gets 10 o'clock, just cut it off.
I have to. I'm a baby.
Well, I'll definitely look at these books for my daughter. She reads and reads and reads and reads and then
Mine
rereads
too.
and rereads and
Mine too.
rereads.
I love that about
That's
her.
wonderful.
It's one of those things where like
So great.
always looking for a new book and something
Yes.
like that. And so she's 16. Well, she'll be 16 this week.
Oh, wow.
But,
Sweet 16.
yes, so appropriate. 16-year-old girl ish.
Raised
Start with this one?
conservatively.
No?
My story, yes.
Okay.
No, there are maybe 5 stories in here. Well, it actually depends. It depends on
Also,
how
this is not
advanced.
just you.
This
Right.
is not
It's a
just me.
group.
I
This is
missed
a
that.
group
I missed
of
that.
writers. Mine
Okay.
is one story.
One
and
story
so I
in
think
that
there's
book.
18 stories.
I apologize. I missed
And,
that.
it actually depends because 16, if she's an advanced reader, and it depends on what you allow her to read. So my daughter
I'm
is
trying to expand my own horizons.
Okay, so my daughter is 14. She's almost 15. She is also avid reader. I mean, that's all she does, you know,
Yeah.
except when we make her mow the lawn. And I've let her, get into a little bit more edgy fiction because she's a very advanced reader and she's advanced English and
And she's mature.
She's mature.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I know, and she's also very strong in her values and her faith, and she talks to me about things.
Okay.
Yeah,
No, that's
that's
big.
important.
So, she's read this,
Okay.
and she'll read. She might read all of that. There might be a few stories where I'm like, maybe not yet, because she's sensitive, and
Yeah.
Yeah.
some of these stories are old school horror.
Yeah.
They're good, but 16,
Okay.
I would read them first.
Okay. Okay.
But my earlier works, absolutely.
Okay. Yeah,
Yes.
we'll take a look at those.
Yeah.
That'd be
And
awesome.
I don't think you mentioned the titles of those. So can you?
So there, Faith Seekers is out of print.
Okay.
I have
There was a trilogy or something.
There is a trilogy, and it's a dystopian faith-based series, and it's 3 books, and it's the City of Light series, and the first one is Wake, the second one is Wild, and the third one is Illume.
So those could be good.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, we'll definitely check those out. And available at our local library?
No, actually,
No.
most of my books are all on Amazon. This one's also on Walmart.com.
Okay.
Some of them are on Barnes and Noble, some are not.
I
This
love Barnes
one
and
is
Noble.
everywhere books are sold.
Okay.
Wow.
So yes.
Awesome.
And my
Love Barnes and
website I
Noble?
usually have it there.
Loved Barnes and Noble.
I miss our Barnes & Noble very much.
Yes.
I miss it.
That was
Yeah.
tragic. when
Oh,
they
I
went
could
out.
spend
It
all
was-
day.
It was one of
Yes.
those easy places to go as a parent. Like
Yes.
you just walk in and you're like, okay, it's all here.
You
There's
grab
like
a little
thing.
snack.
Yeah, and
Kids could sit right on the floor.
yeah, and our two youngest are 8 years apart or 7 years apart.
You could take both of them.
But you could still we could
Yep.
take all 3, and
Yep.
they're over here, and we're here with the Thomas the Train, and yeah,
Yes.
it's all good.
It was
But-
fabulous.
so I miss it. I miss it.
Yes,
That's
I miss
okay.
it greatly. Yes.
That and Cold Stone.
Yes.
That's
Yes,
good. That's
Oh,
awesome.
Sherry, thank you. I feel
Thank you for
so
having me.
privileged
Yeah.
to be sitting next to
That's
you.
really cool. That's a really cool thing.
Make sure if you get one of these, you have her sign it. I don't know why
Yeah.
people do that, but it's important.
It is important.
I
You're like,
guess.
I was right here.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
good. Thank you so much, everyone, for watching. And like and subscribe. Make sure you put the little notification thing on so you know exactly when each
Yes.
episode comes out. And
And share.
special thanks to Sherry once again. And we will put links to those Amazon books right there in the description down below. So be sure to check those out. And man, give them as a gift. It's almost halfway to Christmas. So maybe you can have like a
Yes.
halfway to Christmas gift.
Right.
We can make it a thing. It's now a
It's
thing.
a thing.
So there you go. And enjoy your day. Like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. We will see you on the next episode of Getting Together.
Bye.